One Question is designed to give subscribers valuable insights on how executive leaders in college athletics think about key issues on their respective campuses, in their departments, or within their leagues and conferences.
Greetings, this is Ty Brown and welcome to One Question, where we highlight executive leaders in college athletics. Our guest today is Coach Marcus Woodson. Marcus is currently the defensive back coach at Auburn University. Greetings, Marcus. Thanks for joining us today.
Greetings, Ty.
It's a pleasure to be here in your office here at Auburn. Auburn is a wonderful campus. And, of course, I've known you for a while, known you through many of your stops. Looking at your background, you started off at Millsaps. You've been at Charleston Southern, Fresno State, Memphis. Now you find yourself at Auburn. And you and I had discussions over the years about making that transition from various places where you go. And the question I've always wondered in terms of assistant coaches in football and other sports is when you work for different head coaches, different coordinators, you work in different cultures, right? When you went from Millsaps to Charleston Southern, or when you went from Charleston Southern to Fresno State, different head coach, different defensive coordinator. So you're talking about a different culture within the organization. You're talking about a different leadership style. How do assistant coaches adjust to a leadership style, but maintain their own self or core values without changing the way they lead their own room of defensive backs or room of whatever position group they're talking about?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, as an assistant, you must buy into the morals of the head coach for the program. And once you understand the core values from the head coach as far as what he wants to instill in the players, you adjust to that. And within that, you have to maintain what you believe in as a person deep down inside. What are your core values as a human being? And within that, just being able to share the vision with your room, continue to be yourself within adjusting and being able to sell to the players what the head coach and the coordinator is wanting to instill in them at the same time.
Right. And I'd imagine, the interview process, when you're deciding what job to take, you're probably interviewing that head coach too to decide if what he believes in is the same thing that you believe in terms of leading people and leading young men and running a program.
Yeah, that's correct. Whenever you are getting interviewed, you also have to interview. And also, they research you. You have to research them. And, most of the time, this profession is built around who you know. So there are some connections to people that can kind of let you know who you're dealing with or going to be working with. And you just have to research and see if it's the right fit for you. And I'm all about being at the right place at the right time around the right people, and that opportunity being the right fit for you as a person. So regardless of the level, it's just about being in the right program at the right time.
Now you're in your 14th season, right? This is your first season here at Auburn. And tell me about how you probably had your own idea about running a room, right? Running the DBs or culture or even running a defense. And then you go work for different people. Like, for example, now you work with Greg Brown, who's a legendary defensive back coach, and you work with different people throughout the years. Tell me about how you take what you see with them and then apply it to, okay, you know what, that actually, if I use that would probably help me with these few things. Tell me about some of that throughout your years.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I was very fortunate to get into the profession and hired by a guy by the name of Mike Dubose. Mike Dubose was my head coach at Millsaps. He was played under Bear Bryant, a head coach at Alabama for a long time. So he had been around a lot of football. And having a chance to work with him, he showed me it's not positional leadership. It's about personal leadership. And it's about loving your players and caring for your players. And he showed me right out the gate that players don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And I really took that from him. And he instilled a work ethic within me to help my players achieve their goals. That was his number one thing. And with that being said, I really took that from him, and that kind of got me off to a good start as far as being welcomed into the profession. And then I transitioned to Charleston Southern, and that was a really good experience, having a chance to finally coach at an FCS level. And then I transitioned to Fresno State and went and worked for Tim DeRuiter. And, one thing I took from Tim that stuck with me along my journey is don't waste time on things that doesn't help your program win football games. So kind of major in the majors, don't major in the minors type of thing. And, I took that from him. And That's the thing. You got to be efficient with your time. You got to really maximize the time that you have. And it don't take being in the office from sun up to sundown in order to be successful. And he instilled that in me as well. And I transitioned from there and went and worked with Mike Norvell over at Memphis. And it was about fit and family for him. Is this player the right fit for us, and does he fit into our family? And once we did our character evaluation on each prospect, that really helped develop a culture at Memphis. So as we mentioned earlier, it's just about being around the right people, buying into what they want the players to believe in, and then you at the same time as a human sticking to your core values. For me, it's about faith and family. And I want to be the example for my players and show them what it looked like on the field and off the field, and try to create a personality within them as a group that adjusts to who I am as well.
Right. And, of course, I worked with football coaches for a long time, and what I respect about the coaching profession is you're always evaluated, right? Every week you're evaluated.
That's right.
And it's a constant evaluation. But I do wonder, beyond the X's and O's, right, for these people you work for, you mentioned Norvell and Dubose at Millsaps, and I do wonder about how did they evaluate how you were treating players? How did they evaluate that thing of it's not about position, it's about the person? How did they evaluate fit and family? How do you evaluate those things? X's and O's are easy, right? Or the DB, or people catching the ball, you get interceptions, pass breakups. But how do you evaluate that type of thing from a leadership perspective?
Yeah, well, it comes from just your players and their production on and off the field. When you cut on film, that's your resume, as a coach. Are your players playing hard? Are they playing clean? Do they know what they're doing? At the same time, also, what is their classroom attendance? What does their GPA look like? How are they involved in the community? So it is a lot broader picture than just football. So just being able to see how they produce on and off the field speaks volume for you as a position coach.
I would imagine that a coach where that type of aspect is major can probably look at chemistry. For example, if you're a defensive coordinator or even a head coach, you can probably look at the DBs and see the chemistry amongst the guys to know if the person who's leading them is doing a good job of making sure that team is cohesive and they have, for lack of a better word, love for each other, or they work well together based on how they're being led by the position.
That's right. Yeah. And here at Auburn, man, this place is all about family. And, the players have to look each other like their brothers. And that's the one thing that I can say about this place. A lot of people use the word family loosely. But I tell you what, Coach Malzahn does a really good job of really making it a family atmosphere. And the players are bought into what we're doing. They love each other. And that's what it's all about. So just continuing to build off of that. And like you say, the chemistry amongst your players, that's something you can't hide. So for someone that's coming in that's not in the locker room every day, that's the one thing that will stand out and be obvious to them as they be around our players.
Right. I wonder, we mentioned earlier about doing your research, doing your background on who you're potentially going to work for. What did you hear about Auburn before you came? What did you hear about a place like this? And when you looked up working with Coach Malzahn, like you talked to, obviously, football coaches, it's a tight network, so you asked around about that. And what did you hear that made it sound like a place you wanted to work? Beyond it just being a FBS and Power 5, like what did you hear about the staff that made you want to be here?
Yeah, and that's a good question. And fortunate for me, it was a lot of relationships on the staff that I was coming from at Memphis and the staff here at Auburn. So it was a lot of familiarity going on there to the point to where I was able to get a good feel of what I was getting into. And once I researched Coach Malzahn, and, he's a man of faith. He's a personal leader, not a positional leader. And then Coach Kevin Steele, he and I, we got mutual friends, so we were able to get a good understanding. And there was also a prior relationship with him in place as well, So for me to be around the quality of men that I get to work with every day, as well as the quality of coaches from a professional standpoint to help me grow and develop both as a coach and as a man, I'm really fortunate to be here at Auburn.
And I'll ask you a couple more questions here before we wrap up. One question is, you're in a situation now where you're sharing the room, right? You're working with Coach Greg Brown. Of course, he's been in the profession probably for 40-some-odd years, right? Been at a number of different places. And so now you're sharing a room. You guys are both working with defensive backs. How has that adjustment been for you in terms of what you think in terms of leading and culture and leading your own position?
Yeah, well, it's funny because I always kept up with Coach Brown from afar. You know, being a young defensive back coach, I started early doing my research on the guys that were trademarked as far as being good defensive back coaches, and he was a name that always popped out. So to finally have a chance to work hip to hip beside him each and every day with his experience and his background. I mean, he coached in the National Football League for 17 years, and he's developed more Jim Thorpe Award winners than any other college football coach to ever do it. You know, so for me, that was a no-brainer to want to get the opportunity to work with him every day. And it has been a major adjustment. For 13 years, I was the only defensive back coach on the staff, and now being here to work with another defensive back coach, it was an adjustment, but it's been a positive adjustment. One, because I had to kind of step back and accept a different role than what I was used to, and it's been very positive from the standpoint there's no other guy that I'd rather do it with than Greg Brown. You know, he's a great husband and father first and foremost, but then he's been a defensive coordinator. His expertise from a defensive back standpoint has really helped me at this stage in my career based on the goals I have in front of me. You know, I want to grow into becoming a defensive coordinator and be trademarked as a really good defensive back coach. So there's no better person to be learning from to be able to reach those goals in my career.
All right, and it's an adjustment. Adjustments have their challenges, but in the end, you feel like you're getting mentored and learning a lot in that position.
And any time you're involved with the team, anytime you're involved with a family, you know, it's times where you kind of got to step back. It's not about I and me. It's about we and us. And, you know, so whatever it takes in order for us to be the best Auburn Tigers we can be, I was willing to accept that role and add value to the staff and to the team as best I can with the role that I'm given. So it's been fun, and I enjoy coming to work every day. That's what it's all about, just being in a healthy environment, being able to work with good people.
Right. Okay. And my final question here is something you mentioned a couple of times in this conversation: positional leadership versus personal leadership. Can you unpack that a little bit in terms of what it means to you and the application of it in football?
As you work in a profession for so long, you come around different forms of leadership. You have some people that are personal leaders that want to get to know Ty Brown, that want to get to know your family and everything about you, and they lead you from a personal standpoint. And then you have leaders that are positional leaders. I am the head coach. Listen to what I say, you know, type of thing. And sometimes that can not create a healthy environment. And I've been fortunate up until this point in my career to be around all personal leaders. And it dates back to when I played. You know, David Cutcliffe was my head coach at Ole Miss as a player. And once I got injured as a player and started seeing that I was going to become a coach, I started paying more attention to the things that he did and how he ran his program. And he's a true personal relationship guy, a leadership guy as well. And, you know, as I mentioned, having a chance to work with the guys that I've been able to work with in this profession, I've been very fortunate. One thing that I've learned is I want to be a personal leadership guy. You know, I want to get to know each and one of my players in and out. I want to know what's going on in their lives. I want to know their family. And everybody's surrounded by them on a day-to-day basis as well. So this is a great profession, man. I'm fortunate to be in it, and I just look forward to continuing to do my best part here at Auburn the best I can to make this program better than it was before I got here.
Well, excellent. I really appreciate you allowing me to be here in your office, and I definitely appreciate you joining us here on One Question.
Thank you, Ty.
That was Coach Marcus Woodson. He's been coaching for 14 years, and he's currently the defensive backs coach here at Auburn University. And of course, this is Ty Brown with One Question. Now, Marcus touched on something that I think is very important. It's that the key to a peaceful existence is to master the ability to adjust accordingly. Of course, the ability to adjust accordingly fits into the overall philosophy that the role of a leader is to create and maintain an environment that people want to be a part of. And as always, be better tomorrow than you are today. This episode of One Question is produced by Spades Media Group, solving problems using creative leadership.